Vincent Truitt. We were made aware earlier today that there was impaneled a grand jury to review this case, and we contacted the family. We've been here since about noon, and we found out about the same time that you guys found out that there was a decision of the grand jury. We did not get a copy of the decision from the grand jury until it was released to members of the press. And having read the decision of the grand jury, we questioned whether or not it was in fact a criminal grand jury. And I can say that because, having practiced law for a substantial amount of time, a criminal grand jury returns either a true bill or a no bill. This appears to be a recommendation of no action. So we would have some questions and concerns for the district attorney regarding this case. From its very inception, we've always requested transparency and accountability in this case, meaning the release of the video. And my hope is that he released the video to you guys and you can release it to the public. And I think the video is quite clear. At no point did Vincent Truitt pose an immediate or deadly threat to this officer. This, in fact, is the first time we've been aware of the actual name of the officer, and we have some more questions as to why this level of transparency has not been afforded before. But rest assured, the family of Vincent Truitt is upset by this decision and will continue to fight to clear the name of Vincent Truitt, but also to hold this police officer accountable for the, what we would term as, unlawful killing of Vincent Truitt. So I want to introduce the rest of the legal team that can give some more observations. Do you want to speak before? Yeah, speak before. Okay. Before we introduce the rest of the legal team, I would like for you to hear from Vincent Truitt's grandmother. She has some remarks about the developments of today.
Good evening, Cobb County. Here we are again. But this time, enough is enough. We have met with the DA twice, and he has been so condescending. No more than an anal sphincter. He has talked down to this family, and of course, as we were distraught and experiencing grief, he walked out of the room. We have been sitting here since 12 o'clock. He has not said one thing to us, but ironically, the press was called for a closed press conference. Well, I will tell you this, Cobb County, you should be ashamed. You have another puppet who is going to make these side decisions without having any respect or regard for the family. And we're tired of it. We're not going away. Thank you.
Okay. At this point, you hear from Maria Banjo, one of the other attorneys that is working on Vincent Truitt's case.
Good evening. As a former prosecutor, I am very concerned about the mistreatment of this family. As you all know, as of January 1st of 2019, Marcy's Law was passed. The Victim Crimes Bill of Rights was passed. And unfortunately, what we discovered is that this particular district attorney does not care. He does not want to abide by that. Today, we were not told about the grand jury until 11 a.m. This family had only less than an hour to get dressed, drive 20 miles to come up here. We've been sitting since 12 o'clock. No food, waiting. I specifically asked the DA when we met, when are you going to tell us when the grand jury is? Because that is their right as the next of kin, as the victims in this case, to know when a court proceeding is going to occur, not at 11 a.m. on the day of. That is why it's important that we pass that law. I can't handle that. That was the DA's response when Vincent Truitt's mother was laying on the ground, crying, mourning. He looked at her and turned his back and said, I can't handle that. If you can't handle that, who is supposed to handle it? It is your job to listen to the victims of Cobb County. He is not doing his job. As victims, they have the right to reasonable, accurate, timely notice. That's a part of our Constitution. So they've been the last to know about everything in this particular case, when they should be the first to know. Who and when are they going to be put up front? Their concerns, their needs. Very disappointed in how this DA has chosen to handle this case. As a former prosecutor of over 5 years, I know how to treat a family. And this is most certainly the absolute worst way I've ever seen it done.
Good evening. I'm Attorney Jackie Patterson. As a former police officer, former police chief, and spent 20 years as a judge, I can tell you that the district attorney in this case, not only has he hoodwinked, bamboozled, and duped us, he did the same thing to the media. The reason being is because the documents that's been presented, that's been shown to the media, it says the grand jury recommends no further action. That is not an indictment of a no bill. In other words, ask the DA to show you the indictment where the grand jury said, we hereby no bill the officer. You won't find it because he hoodwinked you. This was a civil grand jury. A civil grand jury is only authorized to recommend further action or not. If you look at the document that the DA presented to you all, it says, we hereby rule that no further action should be taken. That is not what you call not being indicted. That is a civil process. This is a sham. Why didn't the DA take this case to a criminal grand jury? This case was taken to a civil grand jury, and a civil grand jury can only make recommendations. That's what this grand jury did. It said, we hereby ask that you not take any further action. If this was a criminal grand jury, the document would say, we hereby no bill. There's two ways the grand jury can rule. They can say true bill, which means the person is indicted, or they can say no bill, which means the person is not indicted. Go back and ask the DA, show us the proposed indictment where it says, we hereby no bill this officer. You won't find it. We've been hoodwinked, duped, tricked. The family has been tricked. Let me tell you, this is a sham. This man should resign. The DA should resign completely right away, because you don't trick a family into thinking that you took a case to a criminal grand jury when you took it to a civil grand jury. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not done. This is a shame. We're going to file a lawsuit in this case. It's no doubt the lawsuit will be $50 million. You can count on that. That's coming very soon. We've notified the county of the ante-litem notice. We have not heard from them. But what's important today, it's a sham that this was taken before a civil grand jury instead of a criminal grand jury. I ask you to ask Mr. Brody, show us the proposed indictment where it says we hereby no bill the officer. You won't find it. Thank you.
The victim's constitutional rights were violated today. He had the opportunity to tell us yesterday what he was going to do. We directly asked him whether or not this was going to be presented to a criminal grand jury. We specifically noted we did not want a Breonna Taylor situation. We wanted to know what evidence is going to be presented to this jury. We wanted to know what charges, what is your legal theory, how are you presenting the case? Was this particular jury given the opportunity to fully get all the evidence? We don't know. Again, the victim have rights, and he violated it on several occasions, and that is not acceptable at all.
And so, as I said from the very beginning, this fight is just beginning. We will get justice for Vincent Truitt. The fact that we had to fight this hard to even get to this point speaks to the courage of this family. But when you have a family that has been disrespected by the district attorney, not once, but twice, we have a serious issue with that. And so my hope is that he will actually present this to a grand jury with charges. One of the things that you should ask for is a copy of the proposed indictment with the charges listed out, and then the decision of the grand jury whether to true bill, which would be to indict, or to no bill, which would be to dismiss. And he still has 2 bites at the apple in any criminal case. And so for that, I would open it up to any questions members of the media would have about this case.
Gerald, I asked the DA if his office considered this case closed, and he said yes. So what is your response to that? My response is turn over the tape and turn over all the evidence so we can go through it ourselves. Now that it's a closed case, the media can get the evidence, we can get the evidence, and we can go through it. And I promise you we'll go through it with a fine-tune comb. When the first time the family got to see any of those videos? We got to see the videos back when District Attorney Joyette Holmes, it was November the 4th with former District Attorney Joyette Holmes, who I might add was more accommodating to this family than this district attorney, as well as I might add the GBI director, Victor Reynolds, was more accommodating to this family than the current DA. So we've been able to view that part of the evidence, but not the rest of the evidence. Any other questions?
What about the DA saying that he presented to a criminal grand jury?
Well, I'm looking at the document that was given to us, and again, as an attorney who's practiced criminal law for 16 years, at no point do you get a finding of a grand jury. You get an indictment for charges. And my question is, where was the proposed indictment, with the top charge being malice murder, the second charge being felony murder, the third charge being aggravated assault because of the shooting that was done to Vincent in his back? Those charges are not listed in this document. So I have some strong concerns about what this document purports to be. It's definitely not an indictment where you would have a true bill or a no bill.
Why do you think you would say that if it came from a grand jury?
I'm not sure.
Why do you think you should say that it came from a criminal grand jury?
Well, my question would be, that's a better question to him. We asked for these things prior to this date. We asked for a further notice. I actually sent the district attorney an email referencing the Marcy's Law, the Crime Victims Bill of Rights, to get notice. And so we received a phone call this morning around 11 o'clock. We got here at noon. We've been sitting since noon. We did have some conversation via text message back and forth, and we found out there was a decision when we saw the press release. And so we have some real concerns about transparency and accountability and being thorough with this family, which they feel like they have not received. Any other questions?
Gerald, during the press conference, the DA did show the video in real time, and then he showed one picture of a gun in Vincent's hand. I asked him, out of all the hours of video that you presented to the grand jury, how many still shots did he show? They were kind of vague. They said they didn't give me an exact number. But have you seen any of those still shots where it's a blurry picture and it shows allegedly a gun in Vincent's hand?
I have not seen any still shots. We watched the entire video. We watched it actually twice. We had a conversation with the GBI director in reference to that. He said that you had to slow down the video and freeze frame it to even remotely see a gun. We speak to the previous district attorney. She indicated she did not see a gun, and clearly in the full frame of the video, which was happening in live full motion, you do not see a gun, nor do you see him brandish a gun, point a gun, do anything with a gun. So again, if you present the evidence correctly, you will see that at no point was Vincent Truitt a threat to anyone, and he was merely running away.
I also asked the DA if he's going to present this to a second grand jury. His response was no. Your response to that?
My response is, at this particular point, turn over all the evidence. We'll go through it. We're going to file the $50 million lawsuit. We're going to depose every single witness, including probably the district attorney. So this is not the end of this.
And there's one other thing I want to bring up. When a police officer is potentially accused of a crime on duty, that officer has a right to go before the grand jury and testify to what his or her version of the events. I asked the DA, is the officer going to testify? He said no. That proves once again this was a civil grand jury, not criminal. I don't know a police officer in their right mind that would not testify to try to clear himself in a criminal grand jury. That's why the officer had no reason to testify, because he knew that he could not be indicted on a civil grand jury. This proved once again that this was a sham.
What you say then is that the DA and that the officer followed to a T the letter of the law.
How do you shoot somebody in the back and you're following the letter of the law? Show me in the law where it's justifiable for somebody to get shot in their back while they're running away. My response to the district attorney would be, again, as Mr. Patterson just noted, and this is a very recent law. It's been adjusted very recently. I actually testified before Senate on this particular law. The police officer has an absolute right to appear before any criminal grand jury to give testimony and to be questioned. Ask the district attorney why this police officer didn't respond and come testify in front of this criminal grand jury. It's not a criminal grand jury. It made a recommendation. It appears he's going to take up that recommendation. So now turn over all the evidence so we can go through it. Any other questions? Well, I thank you guys. Again, as I know, Vincent's family would like to say, this is not the end of this. You don't shoot somebody in the back twice and get away with it. So we are just beginning this journey for justice. It is my hope that we will get to that justice and we will get all the evidence, and then we'll probably meet again and have a conversation about what the evidence actually shows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.